the transformational industry and the coaching industry and all of that, but I do find that a lot of things lately have become a little surface and more focused on the glossy, let's get famous, as opposed to let's do really deep work that creates breakthroughs and transformations. And so we do a lot of inner work, because your ability to create transformation with your client has to do with your capacity to hold and the work that you've done for yourself. And I teach a lot of different techniques to apply to one-on-one work and group work to support your people in really deep ways.
She's awesome. She's super awesome. So yeah, it's been really fun to watch the trajectory of your work and how it's evolved too over the years. So y'all can ask her more questions if you want. And I definitely feel like Joanna's perspectives on what is going on is important right now. And that we take what's happening seriously, and not minimize it, and all do our part. And so I am very much going to be coming from that place. I think, there has been a lot of what we would call spiritual bypassing. And you wrote, like, the first post you wrote was about that, which I really appreciated. Like, no, this is real. We don't get to think our way out of it. We don't get to think it's going to be gone by 5 p.m. today. Like, no, that's not what is happening here. We get to take this seriously, and we get to take care of ourselves and our families and build connection. And we've never seen anything like this in our world. Like, there's never been anything. What's very striking to me is that there's never been anything in our lifetimes, and in fact, I think in all of human history, that has literally brought the entire world together, because we've never been globalized in this way before. We've never all been connected by the internet before. So even when there was like the plague 100 years ago, which I watched the first episode of Pandemic last night, by the way, which is very interesting that just came out on Netflix. That when that happened, we weren't globalized in the same way. And so we weren't all in it together. Like, this literally is the first time in human history where the entire globe has been, like, we're up to the same thing and addressing the same issue right now. So that's very significant, and how we do this is really important.
Well, and in some ways, it actually, we need to take more responsibility, because of what you're saying, for the ways that we're showing up and communicating with others, because we're all connected. Like, the fact that we're all connected is wonderful and beautiful, and we can be with each other and be in all of this together, as you're saying. But the other thing we need to understand is that because we're all connected, how we say things, how we post things on social media, how we text, how we interact, they have a bigger impact than we imagine, particularly when it's not voice to voice also. And so we want to be thinking about all of that too, because just like we can spread the love, we can also spread the anxiety, or we can spread the shaming, or we can spread the terror. So there's a lot of it.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of that. And, a lot of people really upset with that kind of, there's been a lot of minimizing and shaming of people that were taking it seriously earlier on, who were right, who we needed to be listening to, actually.
Yeah, and this is where the spiritual bypassing thing comes in. And just for anyone that doesn't know that term, what it basically means is that because whatever your spiritual beliefs are, or just your beliefs in general, that you're using them to kind of either shame somebody else, or minimize their concerns, or minimize their fears, pretend like it's not happening, or tell them like that it's not a big deal. So we see this a lot, especially like in a spiritual community, right? Like, if you just believe it's all going to be okay and you don't need to be scared, or repeat after me, we're all okay. Those practices are wonderful. We need those for our soul 100%. But when we share those messages and we bypass our loved ones, our clients, our colleagues, like whoever it is, other people that we're just connected to on social media, we bypass the fears, we're doing a lot of harm. What I've come to realize as I've been talking to my clients and my friends, and also doing my own inner work over the last days and weeks with this, is that this pandemic, I'm going to use a Harry Potter metaphor right now. This pandemic, for those of you that are Harry Potter fans, is like a Bogart. So for those of you that don't know Harry Potter, what a Bogart is essentially, it's kind of like this monster that whenever it's in front of a particular person, whatever their greatest fear is, that's how the monster shows up. And I really see that in this pandemic. Whatever fears are showing up for you, in particular, they're not new. They're fears that you had either on the surface or below the surface before the pandemic, but the pandemic is triggering them, amplifying them, and bringing them more into focus. I mention this not just because it's an interesting intellectual concept to think about, but if we can think about this, it allows us to do a couple of things. For one, to not spiritually bypass, to understand that people are deeply in fear, and there are some reasons and histories and patterns that are bringing up these fears. And number two, if we can make the connection to, what this is, even before the pandemic started, it can help us see it in context and work with it more, right? So for example, if your biggest fear through the pandemic right now is that your business is going to fall apart or you're not going to have any money, I'd 99% bet, I'd bet a good amount of money that there some form of that was happening before this. If your biggest fear is that a loved one is going to get sick and die, I guarantee you before this, that's been below the surface. So we wanna have compassion, and especially those of us that are supporting other people professionally or not professionally, we want to be able to hold this and not bypass it, but help those that we serve and support and love really look at what's going on for them.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So lots of food for thought. So I actually just want to hear a little bit from people. How are you? Number one, how are you? And what's up for you right now? Like what would be beneficial to talk more about today? These are dialogues, isn't, Joanna's here and has some really great perspectives that I want her to share. And I also really want to hear from people. So Pamela, yeah, do you want to?
I'll start. Mm-hmm. So Joanna, thank you, because the wonkiness of my day has been, just a little bit of context. My dad's under hospice care at one residential facility. My mother's at an independent residential facility. And yesterday at 3, she got sequestered into her little apartment and can't go out and socialize. I called her this morning, did she think about my offer to bring her to our apartment? We live across from we live in a loft warehouse building across from the railroad track. I have never heard her go in this space. She'll be 85 in July. She said, I can't tell you why I'm hesitating to come in. The tracks right now remind me of people being shipped off to Auschwitz. We never had anybody in my family die in a concentration camp. But I think symbolically, hearing that her population is being taken away off of this planet because of this virus, whether she recognizes, I could not figure out how this came into her head and how even to compassionately address it. And I know in my heart, her self-isolating in her apartment, what she has to do, is not serving her well right now. And so I wanted to talk into the space how to calm her fears and get her to our apartment so at least she can express what's going on. But what you said just so became clear. So I want to thank you for that. Because I have been in this space all morning trying to figure out what in the world. So it's crazy what things are showing up for different people. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Pamela. And I know it's yeah, I mean, I've been hearing from you, Pamela, and I've been in touch, and you know, it's like people aren't able to go see their elderly parents, and that can be really hard right now. You know, I went out to my dad's house the other day and filled his freezer and his cupboards with food that, you know, he doesn't get it. He's not getting this. He thinks he gets to just keep going out and everything's fine. And, you know, my dad is like 76, 77 years old. So he's like, but this is just like the other thing. We've been through this before. I'm like, Dad, we've not been through this before. So I think there's a lot of challenges for many of us also in communicating to family the importance. And I've been in communication with my sisters and, you know, trying to get them mobilized with me about my dad because he's at risk. And like greatly at risk, actually, given his practices. Like his social everything is that he goes out for lunch and dinner each day. And so if he can't do that, then the isolation is more intense for him. So yeah, so I know that that's weighing on a lot of people too, like what's happening with families.
Yeah, and what I would just add is, Pamela, can you take yourself off mute?
Yes.
What are you scared of?
That I just can't be able to serve, to be there to support my parents.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gap. I mean, yeah. I feel very helpless.
I wanna honor that. I can feel that in you. I can feel just the deep love that you have for your parents. And it's like we've just met, and I can feel already just what an incredible daughter you are. And I just really want to honor that in you. And yeah, it makes perfect sense that that's coming up right now.
Yeah.
Is there, I almost hesitate to ask this question. It may
Go.
be a little early in the whole evolution of everything, but is there an opportunity for you right now in all of this? For you, like your evolution, is there an opportunity when you look at this fear in this way?
I know, I trust there is.
Yeah.
I just haven't been able to articulate it.
Yeah. It might be worthwhile to just spend a little time journaling later today and see what there is here for you, because I sense there's something really important here for you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you again.
Who else? Jump in. How are you? What's moving for you? Kim, jump in. You can just unmute yourself in the lower corner. We'll just let everyone do their own.
First of all, as soon as I saw Joanna, I'm like, okay, I got to be in that call. Because this is really helpful. Like, I find what's happening for me is there's like this very big push-pull energy. There's the part of me that needs to take care of myself. I'm high risk, so I have to self-isolate. But I'm dealing with the fears of the fact that my husband is still working. He's essential service. He does not get to decide that he can't work. So they just announced today that we now have somebody in our local community that is infected, and they're potentially putting him into quarantine at work. So that's going to separate us. And I'm managing all the feelings around that. But then the pull is, and it's funny that I manifested for myself that I'm going to have to do visibility work this year, because, you know, I've kind of been in my own little bubble with my business, and everything is just kind of hit this wall of there's fear around whether or not my business is going to make it through this. There's feelings of I need to find people who feel the same as me, because I do have this general sense of calm that this is all happening for a very big reason. And that's why I look to people like Joanna and read her posts, because it makes me feel better in the moment that I'm not alone with feeling different than everybody else about what's going on and how everybody's so fearful. But I'm also human and I'm dealing with something. So like there's this big push and pull energy, and I'm doubling down on meditation and my own journaling stuff just to process the two different minds that are working right now. And because I'm not very comfortable being visible and being online, and I read other people's posts and I'm just dealing with, how do I know what to say? How do I know how to encourage? So I'm just doing the little things like emailing people, checking in. I sent out my newsletter yesterday, again, inspired by something. It felt like I'm making these choices, and then I read Joanna's post about the leadership stuff, and I was like, okay, no, what I'm feeling compelled to do is good. So it's almost like doubling down on trusting the little intuitions that I'm getting about what I should be doing, what feels right. And so I appreciate that you're doing stuff like this, because I feel like there's a lot of people who are just trying to serve and support, but then where do we go to get support? So little groups like this, like I'm sitting here trying to get a group together for people in my community, but this popped up. So now it's kind of making me feel better that, okay, I can do this. It might just be a small group of people. I can do this. So I just want to say thank you and appreciation that this has happened, because it will support me with the stuff that I'm having to do, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I mean, we talk about this, I feel like, in our general day-to-day, like, where do the healers go to get healing? Where do the space holders go to be held? You know? And so I think we need that more than ever right now. And we get to get creative about it. And you don't have to have anything fancy to say. Like just what you just said from your heart is everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to second that. I'm so glad you said that. And you know what I loved about your share, Kim, is you mentioned that this whole situation is having you have to rely more on your intuition. And it's like, what I was thinking was that push and pull that you were describing, I'm willing to guess that's not new. Again, like this situation is just amplifying, and then not always trusting your intuition. That's probably not new. But maybe one of the learnings here for you is that you can trust your intuition, right? And you can apply that now and moving forward.
If there's any time we need to use the tools that we work on a regular basis, it's now. Use the tools. Yeah. And it can be so hard when we're in a fog of like fear, worry, uncertainty, to remember that. So I think we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. And if we need to each like make a list, like, what are my tools? What are the things that ground me? What are the things that help me come back to myself, to my center, that help me get out of the anxiety? Like, make a list of those, post them on your refrigerator or post them by your computer or wherever you're going to see them. And remind yourself, like, we do have the tools. We have so much more than we realize. And now is when we get to really put them into practice and see where they take us. Yeah. Allie.
Hi.
Hi. So
it's good to see you too. My whole kitchen smells like corned beef and cabbage right now, so I just have to share that with you because it's amazing. It's something good that's going on right now. So what's coming up for me, I thank you so much for doing this. Like, it feels very impromptu and exactly what I needed. And what's going on for me right now is just this real presence to time and space. So everything that's happened over the last 6 months to prepare me for what's going on now that I didn't realize was going on to prepare me for this, and the timing of it all. And what you said about what was going on for you before is what's kind of coming up for you now is so true, because these strengths that I was working on, I'm like relying on now. And my fear, right, have been the last few months has been really trying to figure out what I'm called to do in my next chapter. I've had a real clearing in my life, and I'm looking to figure out where my next steps are to move forward. And now this just, there's so much need. And I'm just delighted to be around people who are facilitators and can hold space, because that's what I feel like I'm trying to do. Today, I'm a volunteer in the foster care system, and those systems are already put a lot of pressure on them, and they're kind of falling apart, and people aren't getting to see their kids. And I have a lot of fear around the more people are home with their kids, there's going to be this deluge on the system at the other end of it. And so I'm looking for where I'm going to come up in that. But Pamela, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing what you shared as well, because in that time and space, it's almost this, it's an opportunity for healing, this cocooning. And what you said about the train just really touched me. My family did die in Auschwitz. I did have ancestors, and it's, maybe this is, we don't know what this is for. We don't know the why, but that's what I'm looking for, is the why. And this is an opportunity for almost this ancestral healing to happen, for there to be just this major breakdown so that we can come out on the other side and not be so tied to the things we think we needed for safety and security, and rely on some things that are more authentic, which is our connections with one another and our daughters. And so it's really a beautiful share. And I don't know, I don't have anything fancy to say. That's just what's happening for me. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Allie. Yeah, I have another friend who's also a friend of Pamela's, who's working in the foster care system. And that system is, I mean, all of our systems right now, you know, and I have a friend who was talking about also what's happening in prisons, you know, and the fear that people have in prisons being in tight spaces together, you know. So it's like just thinking about all of our systems and, you know, the risk that is there, and how do we mitigate that risk, and how to, and, you know, and I mean, our systems have been breaking down anyway. So it's going to be really interesting to look at what happens with our systems after this, because they can't just go back to how they were. Yeah, Raj. Nice to see you, Raj.
It's great to be here. I had an idea today about doing a Zoom call, or hosting a Zoom video, Facebook Live, and I got to see that idea came into manifestation through myself, my larger self, which is Amy, or whoever launched this live. So thank you for that. Mary Catherine's here. And
I'm taking notes. This is such a beautiful call. So I just thought I'd pop in for a moment. Go ahead.
So just a couple things about this. First of all, I want to acknowledge that I have like a lot of energy right in here in this area. There's like this breathing into it, and I'm seeing that not as nervousness or a problem, but I'm seeing it as like excitement and like life flowing through me. I'm also seeing, though, that I get to experience both sadness, scared, and also gratitude for all of it. And you know, all of these feelings, all of these emotions, all of the things are all part of the experience. And since my soul came here, if that's one perspective, came here to experience this life, and this, you know, I'm experiencing more of life than ever before. And what I was doing before today, or before this situation, you know, this age that we're in, BCV, I'm calling it, before coronavirus, was I was focusing on what's next, and constantly planning what's next, and focusing on perfection, or trying to get to a perfect structure and plan, new systems, new governance, new economics, all the things. And now I'm like, what I'm doing next is I'm focusing on now. And, you know, I'm actually focusing on what's happening now, and not the 10,000, exactly, right? It's all here right now. It's always been only now, always has been, always will be. I'm not sure, but yes, you know, it seems like that, you know, it's now. And so I'm stepping into the present, the gift of the present. And what I'm seeing is that there's a lot going on out there, and that's cool. But like, there's a decentralization now of leadership of the people who have the answers. Like maybe before now, I would be like, oh, there's people that have the answers maybe. But now it's like actually everyone's got the answer. And what, to Kim's point, you know, it's like, this is the time to step into that intuition and this like, we can't fail when it's an experiment. Like, life is now in an experimental mode where every day, every moment, we are experimenting with something new, a new conversation, a new post, a new whatever it might be. You can't fail at that. We can't fail at that. So this is the time to experiment, to try things out, to check in with that inner guru, you know, Om Namo, Guru Dev Namo, you know, I bow to the inner guru within, and it's like, follow that and be open to feedback and ideas from other people that might help us, guide us in that next moment. So, you know, we're all in this together. I'm looking at it like that. And inspired, like, what am I inspired by? What's inspiration moving through me? Let me show up that way, because just like Amy is inspired to be a part of this Zoom conversation, that's inspiring me to do what's mine to do. And so that's the place, is that I don't need to do what the next person's doing, but I can get inspired by them tapping into that same energy of inspiration. And then what's mine to do? And just let's all like keep building on top of that. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this and to share and to hear each of you.
Thank you, Raj. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We all get to figure out what it looks like right now, you know, and we can't have like, I mean, yeah, like Kim said, even if it's like a small group, bigger group, however we want to do it, we get to do it. It's all an experiment. I love that you said that. It is. It's absolutely the human experiment.
I love everything that you just said, Raj. And one thing that I want to pull out that I think is important for all of us is what you said in the beginning, you know, that you're feeling the excitement and you're feeling the life force, right? And the reason why I want to pull it out is because some of us may have the tendency to think like, it's all fear, or it's all doom and gloom, or it's all grief. But the truth about the human nature and the human condition is that the way we are most alive, when the grief is on top of the joy, is on top of the grief, is on top of the joy, it's the full range of all of the emotions. And so if any of you that are listening are feeling like, oh my God, I was feeling happy before, there's something about this that was exhilarating to me, and what is that? What does that make me? Or, you know, this and that. No, it's all of it together. It's the fullness of all of the emotions. And we, in moments like this, it's almost like a container for feeling more of our emotions in all good ways.
Anyone else want to jump in? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to build on one thing. Just, I don't know if this has been said before in this conversation before I joined in, but like, I mean, hello, like quarantined / cocoon, you know, it's like we're in the freaking chrysalis, and like that view of like if the caterpillar was fighting, like liquefying itself into those imaginal cells and what was going to come, like it might not ever know what it's like to be a butterfly. And even if it was having to fight for its life out of that, and only to realize that that fight was the exact experience that led to building its muscles so it can fly. And so yeah, like this is a time to be in this container, to feel and to experience and to like have an accelerated evolution that's possible here.
It's such an amazing metaphor, you know. There was another post someone wrote about this metaphor the other day. I'll try to find the link for everyone, but yeah, it's really such a beautiful metaphor. And it's painful. When the caterpillar goes through that breakdown, it's painful, you know. And Alan Watts and many other spiritual leaders have talked about like the need for contrast. We have to have that contrast. So we have to have the grief, the love, the grief, the joy. We have to have that. Who else wants to jump in? You don't have to, and the space is here for you too. So we'll make some space again in a few minutes. I want to talk with you a little bit, Joanna, because you've written some really beautiful posts that I've very much appreciated. You know, I've been following your work for years, since you started, really. So I don't read everything, but I read a lot of it. And I always appreciate your perspective. I always appreciate the love and the centeredness that you come from in your writing. And so you wrote a post the other day about, I think it was like 7 things we can be doing. And I thought it would be helpful to actually talk about some of those things, because we all get to think about this in new ways and in, you know, from different angles. And so we talked at the top a little bit about spiritual bypassing. And we get to not do that right now. We get to not minimize people's feelings, minimize people's grief, avoid dealing with it by just saying, you know, we're all going to think it away. Like, we're not going to think this away. Like, I believe in the power of thought. I follow new thought. I am on board with that. And like, there's an and, you know, this.
We're not going to think it away. We're not going to pray it away either.
Right.
Prayer can help 100%, but it's not, you know.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the things that you're seeing and that you think are helpful for people right now? So the spiritual bypassing was one beautiful post, and then you had this other post, and I think we need to be talking more about thoughtful, nuanced perspectives about what's going on, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So another piece that's really important is, you know, as a leader, and we're all leaders in our own way. Some of us are business owners, some of us are leaders of our team, some of us are leaders of our family, right? Or in our communities, each one of us are leaders in our own way. What's really important, I mean, really now, but always, is to be honest with your community about where you're at. What people don't need right now are leaders that are pretending like it's all okay, are leaders that are pretending like it's business as usual, are leaders that are, if they have fear or concerns, are pretending like they don't have fear or concerns. You know, sometimes we tend to think, in order, you know, I want to look all evolved and spiritual, or like, to be a good leader, I need to show that I'm not nervous or scared or concerned or all the things. People smell that bullshit a mile away. And then they become either distrustful of you or distrustful of their own impulses. What we as leaders really need to do right now is to be honest about where we're at. Like, you know, in some of the classes I taught today and client sessions, you know, when it was appropriate, I straight up shared, like, I had a breakdown this morning, you know, like, I cried for 5-10 minutes. I got really upset. Doing that doesn't make me as a leader look weak. It actually empowers those that are looking to me for direction to become more acquainted with their own emotions, to trust their emotions, and to derive empowerment from it. So be honest with yourself and with your community. And of course, the only way that you can do that, the only way to be honest with yourself and your community, is to be doing your own inner work. I'm guessing if you're on this call and you're listening to this call, you are already in so many ways doing your own inner work. You understand the importance of it. It's so easy in a moment of chaos or, you know, like whatever we want to describe what's going on right now, to drop our practices, right? It's like we get worried about this, or we have to do that, or there's chaos. Like I know I have my kids at home trying to figure out like homeschooling, running my business, you know, all the things. So that it's like usually the inner work is the first thing to drop. We want to be really conscious to keep those practices in, to be working with our shadows, to be working with our thinking patterns, to be nourishing. You know, Amy Jo was talking before about like all of our practices, right? And our nourishment practices, our soul nourishment practices. It's important to be honest about our limiting beliefs, where we're getting triggered, where we're putting blame on others, like to really continue to do that deep work for ourselves, but also so that we can show up for our communities, for our family, for our friends, for our clients, whatever it is. We cannot show up authentically and honestly and powerfully if we're not doing that inner work. Amy Jo, I don't know if you want me to just keep on ranting or if you want to stop me at any point. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, if people, Pamela, do you want to say something?
I do have a question, and it's about the lessons we're learning on two levels. I get my need to find out for myself, but as a collective humanity lesson, I'm wondering how we bring that forward as we're feeling what on a humanity level that we get to take away from this experience.
Explain a little bit more your question. I think I'm getting it, but I'm not totally getting it.
Well, I'm trusting that there's a huge lesson, especially globally, one, how we're all connected, but the message that we are to embody as we come through the other side of that. And as that message is unfolding, the responsibility of sharing that. And I guess I'm feeling the weight of that responsibility, and also the weight of getting it right.
Yeah.
Do you know? So that's
I think there's a couple of pieces in there. And so first of all, in terms of the weight of the responsibility, what I find comforting, and you can tell me if you agree with this, is that we all are sharing this responsibility.
Exactly.
I'm trusting that is true.
Yeah. Yeah. And so not everybody is going to step up to the plate, right? Because that's how it is. But I think a lot of people are, and never the best way to support and to lead and to take responsibility is to not take over responsibility. The moment that we slip into being over responsibilityers and having either a gut complex or feeling like we need to do it all on our own, or not trusting that others are going to be doing it too, is the moment that we lose our tools and our faculties to actually show up with the message and the ways that we're meant to support that land.
Yeah. And Amy Jo and I are in a community right now. I think we're challenged with this with some of the other people in the group, and figuring out what that space, for me, what that space looks like.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Okay. And Amy Jo, I want to hear what you have to say on it. But again, like what I'll say is, I just have this feeling about you, Pamela. I don't know why, because we just met, but from one over responsibility-er to another, I just have a sense that you're an over responsibility person. I feel it. I think the first foundational principle valuable is to understand where our boundaries are and what our work is, and to support others, but not to take responsibility for them.
Okay. I hear the words. I totally hear the words. This is what I'm challenged with right now, quite honest.
And then the other piece, because I think the two hook into each other, is the what goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about is to not fall into the myth of perfection.
Okay.
Right? So when this is something that I teach like as a technique, when we fall into the myth of perfection, there's only two things that exist: perfection or utter failure. That's it. Black and white thinking.
Okay.
The truth of human nature is that there's no such thing as perfection. That's only for the gods. And there's no such thing as utter failure. Where we live our lives, where the gold is in the middle. And I don't mean, middle kind of doesn't sound powerful. I don't mean it that way, So don't allow yourself to fall into the thinking of I have to get it right when I share this message, when I show up. Don't go into watch yourself for the perfection mode, because again, when you're in that mode, you're just going to bop back and forth between I have to be perfect, oh my God, that was a sucky failure, I have to be perfect, that was a sucky failure, back and forth, the ping pong game in our minds. Where we want to be is in that humanity place in the middle. Even though this isn't perfect, nevertheless, it is of service and will make a positive impact. Even though I may not have said that totally the best way, nevertheless, the people that needed to hear it will have heard it. Even though I didn't fix that completely, nevertheless, we're moving forward.
Lovely. Thank you.
There's such a big piece here around trusting ourselves. I just reread The Power of Now, so it's literally sitting on my desk when Raj brought that up. Highly recommend it if you haven't read it recently. Really good right now. And I think there is a certain way in which we get trapped in our ego trappings when we're in that perfection, having to get it right, or the over responsibility of oh, it's all for me to do, that where we're not actually allowing ourselves to have more of the love and connection and support that we could have from others as well. So in a way, it's we distance ourselves from getting to have more of that when we feel like we're the only one that can do the thing, or that we can't get support, or that for some reason all of these things are on our shoulders. So we get to shift that right now. We get to do it differently. We get to have it look different. We lost Joanna. She'll be back. And I wanted to just really acknowledge when Ali was talking about the ancestral piece, my entire body just flooded with tingles. When I get that, there's a, it's they're here. Hi. They're yes, us, by the way. So I think it's so much bigger than us right now. And I think that's going back to that piece earlier, Pamela, of your mom and the railroad tracks and what that brought up in her. There gets to be this bigger lineage piece we get to look at too, of what gets to be healed in this moment, that we have this gift of time to actually focus on it and heal it, for all of our lineages. This has leveled, it's not completely leveling the playing field, because obviously there's some people are going to be way better off and other people that are not going to be as well off from this. And no one is immune from this, right? It has leveled the field in that way. And so nothing in our lifetime has ever had that impact. So yeah, what is our legacy, and what is the connection that we build and the way that we show up in love through this mean? And I think the way we do this is everything. Like the way we do it is everything. All the stuff that Joanna was talking about in terms of I just lost my train of thought. The way we do it matters right now. So
Amy Jo, I was just going to mention, I was talking about timing and how we can think about that ancestral time, but really the power of now is the key. I mean, that book is so amazing with that and what Raj was saying about what's mine to do, I actually wrote down that question because it's what's mine to do now. And as much as we want to put it into place and what it all means, like maybe that's not for us to know now. Like we're being held in a much bigger space and a much bigger purpose right now. And part of I've had a roller coaster of anxiety, and some of me just wants to, get out and rave and rage. And then I'm like, oh, that's not helping. That's not helping anybody's anxiety. If I'm talking about there's no toilet paper, then everyone else is looking for toilet paper. We have to do our own work, right? But it's like, what's mine to do now? And sometimes to get through this level of anxiety, that's all you can do. I mean, when I've been in really crazy times of my life, my biggest coaching I got was write down 3 things that you're going to do today. And it was literally all that my psyche could handle that day. And that's kind of where I'm back at. Like, what are the things that, I don't know, I've said it, what's mine to do? It's very helpful.
Yeah. Habiba has had her hand up, so I want to give you a minute here.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for holding this space. Yeah, I just want to share where I'm at. I've been in heavy isolation for over a year because of a few things that conditioned me, whether it's my gender journey or trauma, multiple complex trauma that I'm dealing with and healing from, and disability, and being autistic. And I've been trying to pull myself out of this isolation that feels really devastating, and a lot of times that's killing me and threatening my life. And so now in the last week, I've been feeling very frustrated that I finally felt that I was making some steps to pull myself to join people more in lively spaces and be able maybe to be in those spaces a little more. And suddenly those spaces stopped existing. And now I'm like trying to, or what's coming up for me is that maybe it's okay, and maybe it's the world is getting closer to the place that I've been in for a long time, like very strongly for the last year, but more than that. So it's like instead of me trying to match the vibration of the world that was going much faster, that maybe a lot of people around me are lowering, and maybe that will facilitate some connection that I've been craving. So there's that, and there's also a lot of concern for my people. I am from Syria. I am Syrian. I am Arab. And Syrian people have been facing the end of the world for a decade in a very severe way. And right now, there are a lot of refugees around Syria trying to get to safe places. And for these people, going through this, the virus situation is a lot harder. and so in a way, it seems like it's leveling um, the ground for most of us. In other ways, it does feel that it's not leveling, and so I don't know. There's a lot of confusion that I'm still in, a lot of things that I feel with my people that I'm not in personally. I have the privilege to be here in Los Angeles and to be relatively safe, a lot safer than being a refugee. I am a refugee, but I'm not running in open fields and being attacked by soldiers and immigration officers. I've had my share of that in the past in different ways. I don't know. It's quite confusing what's happening and how to like keep trying to heal from that decade of severe death for myself and my country and my people, and then like continuing that healing here now, where I'm at physically and where I'm at with people around me with the virus situation. And isolation is the thing that is I'm mostly scared of. Is that that monster what's bringing up for me, and I mean it was already up for me for a long time, but now it has been amplified even more. Um, yeah, that's where I'm at. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, everyone.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Do you have people around you that you're checking in with, who are checking in with you? Do you have a pod of people?
I have a few people around me. Yes, I do.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hear like there's so many layers of what's happening because you've been on your own personal journey that has led to isolation, and then like the pull around what's happening in Syria with, I don't know if it's family members of yours, or like are there specific people that you are connected to and worried about, or is it like the general big situation of what's happening?
Um, yeah, I got to a point where that differentiation did not matter anymore with what's happening in my country. We've been all through so much. Not the same. Again, like some of us have access to support that many others do not. But and like I've had things happen to people very close to me, and I've had see things happen to people who are not, I don't know personally, and the emotional impact on me is the same at this point. And I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure, like, if it's like once you get beat up so much, um, if it's like connects you with, I'm not sure what that means. It's just the way I experience it.
Biba, I just want to really honor you for being here today. I hear all of the isolation, but also I think it says so much that you're in community. And one of the things that I know is that when there's desire, which I hear there is so much for you to be in connection, that, you know, it can happen. And it's like, connection, I think, doesn't happen in like these big ways. I think it happens in these little pockets like this. So I'm just so happy that you're here and part of this community today. And I'm so happy to hear that you have people around you. And I'm also wondering if you have, like we've been talking about on the call, like if you have your own personal practices to navigate through these difficult, you know, all of these things that you're talking about, which as Amy just said, are so layered. Like I know for me, I have a regular journaling practice just to be able to untangle the patterning and the dynamics that are inside of me. I don't know what your spiritual beliefs or connections are, but I know especially in times that are difficult, I have a practice where I have spirit write to me. Like I write, but it's through the voice of spirit, or I can hear the wisdom and the love and the nurturing. I'm glad that you have people around you that you're getting it from, and hopefully more spaces like this. But I also just wanted to toss that to you as another, you know, another tool and another piece to work with.
Yeah, it's spiritual connections are is something that's very strong in my life, in my daily practices. I pray a lot, and I play some instruments, and I speak to my ancestors, and more ancestors have been showing up in my life in the last year. I've also been learning to be careful of some of the ancestors that show up, that not everyone is in the right timing or the right balance that or work that needs to be present. The thing, however, with all of this is for me, I have become, since my isolation has been really chronic and long, I feel that I've become too much of a spirit. I have my spiritual connection is really powerful. I believe almost too powerful comparing to my human um, activities, even the banal human activities that I'm able to do or not able to do, and comparing to moments of sharing physical space with other bodies, human bodies, and people, and conversations. And so a lot of times what ends up happening, and I'm not saying that I end up reducing my spiritual activity, but sometimes it gets triggering in itself because it becomes a mirror of my isolation. I feel that, oh, here I am again talking to the spirits and that I love, and they are guiding me. But the human connection is still very difficult. And even when I'm around people, there's a big barrier that has gotten internalized inside of me. So yeah, again, it's isolation, the word and the monster that's coming up and being amplified. And I'm really interested in seeing how this collect, like how the way in which isolation is now seems to be a collective experience might change my relationship to my isolation and maybe help me heal from it somehow. I hope so.
That's a beautiful perspective. I mean, I feel like you probably have skills that other people don't have right now because this is something you've been looking at and investigating for a long time.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing so vulnerably. Raj?
This is me showing you that I don't know if what I'm about to say is the right thing, but I get to experiment with a question since I have the opportunity to ask. Is just, if you were Neo, I'm asking the whole group, whoever's inspired to answer, if you were Neo and you were the one, the chosen one to eradicate the matrix, to open us up to a new paradigm, what is your gift to share with people, the community? I would love to pose that question just to see what that might be. If you were the one, and it's like Morpheus is like, I know you're the one. What is your gift?
You're welcome to pop it in the chat if you feel like an urge right now, or to speak to it, or to ponder it. Come back tomorrow and tell us, because we'll be here again tomorrow. We all have gifts, and we probably all have more than one. So, but yeah, pick one at least, right? What's the main thing? If you're keeping the main thing, what's the main thing?
I want to just ask Norma, because I don't think I've heard from her yet. I would love to know what came up for you.
Hi, Raj. I'm Norma. I think I've just been taking it all in, and that's kind of like my MO for most situations. I take it all in, I stand back for a little while, and then I'll jump in the deep end usually. So yeah, like for me personally, what's been coming up, I am super social, and I love human connection and being with people in person. And so this is really just like all the things that I had to look forward to, all the events that I had planned, having that suddenly change and be out of my control and not be available anymore is just like, okay, cool. Like, how do I adjust myself? How do I continue to hold my community and hold space for my community while still taking care of myself and not going crazy during this time of isolation and changes? And so just learning that what I can control, learning to let go of the things that I can't, absorbing, learning, a lot of growth. I'm feeling that cocoon and that pain in the cocoon, and like seeing and hoping for and planning for and building what can come after, and learning to experience the now. So yeah, learning from you all, learning different ways of connecting. So it's all an experiment and an experience.
I told Norma we were in touch. She lives here locally. She's one of the last people I saw. She was one of my last breakfast dates the other day. We were like, oh, we don't get to do this anymore, do we? Right now. Alicia, do you want to jump in? You're saying hello. You can unmute and talk. Okay, so she says, I'm Alicia. I'm originally from Dominican Republic, but live in Miami. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Oh, you're there. Why don't you just say it?
Hi, how are you? My phone has been ringing, so that's why I wasn't mute. I have like 2 minutes, but I just wanted to say hi and thank you all for sharing. Everyone's very nervous. My phone is exploding with information. I was in Spain 2 weeks ago, so this same sense of fear was already there at its peak. So it's been like 5 weeks already of intense worrying and concern. And amidst all of these, I feel calm. I'm worried about, you know, the thousands of people that are losing their jobs already that, you know, I keep hearing, and friends that are, you know, panicking because they're about to lose their jobs, and you know, but I don't know, I'm inspired by everything that you guys have said today. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. And thank you. I jotted down a few things, words that you guys inspired me, just to share with my group, with my community, and see if I can transmit a sense of calm and some words, I guess, and yeah, and just paying it forward, I guess, and stay connected. So thank you so much, and yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
So, yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about some things that we can be, some other things we can be doing to take care of ourselves, and hear from Joanna again. One of the things I do want to pose to people, I live alone, and I have several friends that live alone. And so I often say there are things that we can learn from both kink communities and poly communities about and skill sets that we actually can use in a broader way that are helpful to us. And I actually think that there are some skill sets that are really helpful right now for us to be paying attention to. So in thinking about, you know, in the poly world, a lot of times people will talk about like their pods, right? You know, like they're like little poly family, like they're polycules, right? They're like, who are the people that I'm connected to and my partners are connected to, and we have our kind of little like family pod. And so I think we could really be looking at that concept seriously right now, and how we want to, like, who's in your pod. If you don't live with a big family at home, if you live by yourself or with one other person or something, like, are there other people in your pod that you have connected with, talked about what kinds of precautions are we taking? What do we feel good about, right? Which is what like the safer sex safety conversation would be in a pod. So like, what do we feel comfortable with? What do we need in order to feel like we can be connected and be together in this time? And then creating, you know, our little like family that we're looking out for each other, that we can spend time together. I have a friend that lives like 5 minutes from me. Like, it's easy for me to get to her house, or we could go on hikes together and hike 6 feet away from each other. Like, we can choose to do things like that and figure out like, who do we feel good having in our pods right now, so that nobody is alone, that everybody has some kind of support. And so especially for those of us that live alone, thinking about how you want to do that. So that was something I really wanted to pose for everybody. So, all right. Oh, so Joanna had to go. So we will talk with her more. We will have her on again because there's more. So yeah, I just wanted to check in with people, like, what are some other things that are helpful in terms of practices right now? I mean, obviously we're hearing about a lot of things in terms of just staying safe, not getting the virus, not minimizing it, not thinking, oh, I'll just go out and get it and then it'll be over with, because we actually don't know like how extreme this virus is and the impacts that it may have. There's some indication that it could have some pretty big impacts on hearts and lungs. So really being very, very mindful of that is important right now. So anything else that people want to add? I know people are needing to hop off, but I wanted to really leave with that today. So other things you think are important or that you're doing in your communities or in your families?
I think that negotiating your contact, what your safety are, is so important. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I really only am letting one person in my house because I have got immune compromised medication. And I had like, you're going to go into work. Here's what I need. If you're going to come over, I was like, and I just needed to say, look, I don't want to be a nag, but I'm going to keep saying this. And he said, as long as you keep saying it nicely, it's fine. And that was the end of the negotiation. It didn't have to be a long drawn out thing, but it was so important for me to feel safe around that, because I have different hygiene skills. I was raised by a mom with OCD, so I'm already up here on the hand washing, and I needed to be able to say it in a way that didn't sound like the way my mom says it, which is wash your hands. Like, that's not how I want to show up for the people I love. But those boundaries for ourselves are so important. Like, that's like, and, you know, I was really proud of one of the things I'm doing is celebrating when I get a win. So like, I was in the grocery store and somebody got really close to me and he was kind of kidding around about something and bumped my elbow, and I said, please don't touch me. And I said it with eye contact and clear, but I said nicely, and he went, oh, I'm sorry. And I went, no problem. And I walked away. It didn't have to be a big deal, but I knew I needed to say it firmly enough because he was just somebody who was in a different space, you know, if that makes sense. So celebrating wins.
Thank you. Super helpful. Pamela, Kim? Yeah.
This has been really, really helpful from so many different levels. I've always thrived in a one-to-one connection thing. I'm a highly sensitive. I already have some of the isolation. I have a disability. Like, some of what was being shared earlier, I relate really strongly. It's also why I feel like some of us in those different communities, we have been working on the skills to show up now, and we can support people. It's still like what Joanna was saying, like, I used to be in such a bad over responsibility state. Now it's a deeper, more public expression and practice of that. Boundaries, telling people, you know, my husband kind of blew me off when I said, I'm really worried about this, but I want to take my worry and turn it into something proactive. So I tried to have a conversation with him, and I held my boundaries, and there was 36 hours of silence between us. But then for him to send that phone call this morning and say, I'm really sorry I didn't support you more with this, like, just in 36 hours, how much things are changing. And I know when he was expressing, he doesn't know how to deal with his fears. And he's lucky he's got a built-in coach in the house who can navigate that with him. But just being able to put into practice on a deeper level what I've learned about boundaries, what I've learned about over responsibility, asking for what I need. One of the things, I appreciate your conversation, Pamela, because locally in my community, some people who are very reactionary and have reached out to me and said, hey, would you come and help us moderate this Facebook group? Because they're handling the whole helping people who are isolated get support locally, because our municipal offices are reacting so slowly to what's going on, and something like 65% of our community are seniors. So really important that we support them. And so there's nobody really supporting the businesses, and they were like, can you come into this group? And my first thought was, there's like 1,000 members in there. I don't want to be the person policing. But then from this conversation today, it was like, okay, this is both a practice of over responsibility, and I said I wanted visibility. This is going to be right in my face. And I loved what Raj had said about, you know, and Pamela was highlighted with you too, is, you know, there is that facilitation between perfection and utter failure, and finding that, like, I'm anchoring to, this is experimental. Nobody knows what to do right now. So why can't I show up in those spaces and do what I can to support? Because I know, even though I can't really say this is my purpose, I know I've got a lot of good skills that can support people with having space to express and all the things that Joanna was talking about. So I just want to express appreciation for having this today, because it's really kind of cleared something for me to now go back into those people and not be so fearful about them asking me to come and support, and just take it moment by moment. Like, I have made so many notes. I'm going to be going back through this for, like, this is probably going to be my fuel for the rest of the week, because there's a lot. It's, as a highly sensitive, I am really overstimulated right now.
Yeah.
But just doubling down on everything. And I really appreciate, Amy, that you did this. And I'm going to do my best to be in tomorrow's group too, because
yeah, thank you.
it's so helpful. So thank you so much to everybody who's
I
shared.
will be here, even if I'm alone with one other person. I will be here every day at noon. Tomorrow, Vanessa Cadornu is going to come on. She is, oh my God, such a powerhouse. I've also known her since the 90s. Of course, I like immediately reached out to like all my old homies and like invited them first. But there will be someone every day to offer different kinds of wisdom. And she's an amazing intuitive. She's one of the most sensitive people I know. She teaches intuition. She does Akashic record readings. So I don't know what she's going to do with us tomorrow, but she's here. She's super powerful. So that is tomorrow. And then Mira Jolie is going to be with us on Thursday. Beth Osmer is coming next Wednesday. And then we're just filling in the schedule. So you all can look on the link. I'll keep posting it. And we'll just keep updating the schedule as it comes in. And if any of you want to offer something, you let me know, because this is a community space and we get to create what we want to create here. So whoever needs it, I always trust the right people are going to be here, and whoever needs it will be here. I'm delighted that a bunch of people showed up today and people watching on the Facebook as well. So I really thank you all for your contributions and your hearts, and just being so willing to show up with that vulnerability in the heart and the love. And I mean, I think that the biggest thing in terms of the leveling of the field right now is that we all have love to give. We all have love. We all have presence to give, regardless of anything else. And so we get to decide what that looks like. And, you know, Kim, I feel concerned about you, you know, with your husband being out at work and with your immunocompromised situation, you know, and you get to set boundaries around that if you need to. I mean, I really, you know.
It was one of the toughest things, because I kind of naturally assumed he would respect it. And then it was like, oh no, we're doing this now. Okay, great.
I think a lot of people really haven't fully, I mean, people are starting to really grasp the gravity of it, but I think that a lot of people, it took them a while to get on board. It took me a while. I didn't get it at first either. So, yeah.
It's tough.
So, I mean, keep setting the boundaries you need to. If it means you're sleeping in different rooms or that he is quarantining at work, then you get to do that, because your life is important.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amy Jo.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
I have to go.
It's so good to see you all. And I will be back tomorrow at noon. I hope to see some of you then. All right. Have a good rest of your day.